Welcome students to my YouTube channel. I'm proceeding and going on to teach thesis writing, meaning writing a thesis that is publishable, thesis that can be published. So we are moving to lesson 3, of which we are going to look at chapter 2, which is literature review. Literature review. And we are saying that this section deals with a discussion of existing literature on the subject with the objective of reviewing contributions by earlier scholars. Also, we look at weaknesses, we look at gaps in existing knowledge and lessons learned. So this is the major importance of this particular chapter. So in this particular chapter, citation should be included in the text, indicating the author's name, the year of publication, in accordance with the approved style for presenting the dissertation or the thesis. Like mostly we encourage social science students to use APA a style of citation, and also when they are making references. So the student is advised to include recent literature, not older than 5 years ago, no, as well as sources that date back more than 5 years, fine. For example, theories, models, and historical reviews. These ones could be so many years, so many centuries ago, but we encourage that students do citation which is not older than 5 years ago, and that makes your study very recent and properly researched. The subsection on theoretical review shall require a mixture of original theory, critique over time, and new reviews. So in any case that is, a mixture of old and current literature is required. So we are not just saying that you only dwell on what is not older than 5 years, because you will find most of the theories were developed so many years ago. So we are calling upon a mixture of these to blend to create a spatial kind of secondary data collection, which is very much advised to students or scholars. So you'll find chapter 2 will have 2.0. Then you write the topic, that is literature review or related literature review, meaning whatever you will be reading is related to your topic or title of your study. So we are saying that you are going to have now 2.1, which is introduction to chapter 2. So the introduction tells the reader how the chapter is arranged and how the review is organized. So the rationale of the study is also shown, the sources of literature and the procedure of literature review should be stated and briefly discussed in the introduction of the section. So the purpose of academic research, among others, is actually to contribute to the body of existing knowledge. Therefore, the student should show what relevant existing knowledge relates to what she or he wants to do in as far as the research, his research or her research is concerned. So one should seek literature that lends support to the line of argument of the study. So that is 2.1, which is the introduction to literature review, introduction to related literature review. Then what happens is this. from 2.1, you move to 2.2. Now, 2.2 here, as a subsection, you are looking at concepts, opinions, and ideas from authors, experts, and scholars. So, concepts, opinions, and ideas related to what you are researching or about your title or your topic of study. So, what we want to see defined here, like we want to look at the cause, the IV, that is independent variable. So in this particular subsection, define the concepts related to independent variable according to the different authors, because different authors have defined your independent variable in the title differently. And therefore, you have to bring out the different scholars, how they have defined the IV concept. So you are supposed also to break the IV or the independent variable into several components and define each of them accordingly, according to different scholars, according to different authors who have looked at those particular concepts that are related to the independent variable in your topic of study or even in your objectives. Yeah, because there are different concepts related to what is being defined. Then also, now you move to the problem. You move to the problem. Sorry. Yes, you move to the problem. So what's the problem in your study topic? It's what we are calling DV, meaning dependent variable, because the problem that you are researching on has underlying causes. So under this, but under concepts, opinion, and ideas from different authors, here you define the concepts that are coming under the dependent variable according to different authors. You do the same. You break the DV into several components and define each of them accordingly. It is very, very important. If you do not get any theories for your independent variable and dependent variable, then you can use conceptual framework. But now the format of the university will also dictate what you are supposed to use. So what am I saying here? I'm saying that if you don't know anything about what you are studying on, no, I'm saying, yeah, if you don't know anything, you use theoretical framework. But if you understand what you are going to do about and you have used hypothesis, for example, you develop a conceptual framework. You develop a conceptual framework. So now, after 2.2, which is opinion, ideas as defined by different scholars and authors, you move to 2.3, which is theoretical perspectives. Theoretical perspectives. Yeah. So here, under this, you write the theories about your studies. So you can select 2 or 3 theories that are related to your study. And therefore, these 3 theories that are related to your study, you do the following. First of all, you write 2.3.1. That is theory number 1. So you tell us the title of the theory, e.g. McGregory theory X and Y. Then, number 2, you tell us who proposed this theory. Now, for this case, it's McGregory, who proposed this theory. Then, when was this theory proposed? Then, where did you cite this theory? In which book did you cite this theory? Then, number 5, what does this theory say about what you are studying on? Then, number 6, how does it relate to your study? So you have to convince us, we readers, that the theory you have mentioned is related to what you are going to study on. So you can choose 2 or 3 theories. that are related to your study. E.g., for example, you can say this study is based on the environmental and individual theories or school of thought proposed by Hans and Singer in 1978, cited in Lavender and Raludla 2001. That is how you state a theory. Then you go on to say, according to theories, the factors that affect business, performance are either external or internal. So you do all that. So what I'm saying here, I'm saying that you can use either conceptual framework or theoretical framework, and in some cases, you can use analytical framework. So whichever is applicable to your area of study is acceptable, so long as you can back it with evidence. Now, after you finish a theoretical framework or conceptual framework or analytical framework, you move to 2.4, where you are going to look at related studies. Related studies. Related studies. So what do we mean by this? Out of what you've read so far, you will find that there are similar researches, similar to the one you are going to do, that have been done in other countries, in other regions, or elsewhere. So it is very important you choose one or two related studies, which sometimes, related studies. So these ones you have to show who studied, then when this study was conducted, name and the year, and where, then what the study was all about, then what were the findings, and what were the implications. So this is what we call sometimes empirical studies, related studies, empirical studies, studies that have already been done. So it's like maybe you are saying Meza et al. 2008 conducted a study on the relationship between management skills and survival of small, medium enterprises in Ethiopia, for example. Then their findings indicated that entrepreneurs who had acquired more business management skills survived life than those who had less management skills. Then, when you are doing that, you also try to look at the gap. So you mention either the methodological gap, you mention what they have left out, that is the previous researchers. So now, when you do that, you are moving closer to the end, because now what you have done is that after you have done with related researches or empirical studies, now you move to the last bit, which is theoretical, conceptual, content, and whatever gaps. So here you are trying to look at the whole from 2.2 up to where you reached up to the related literature studies, related studies. So you are trying now to pinpoint out the shortcomings, the gaps that were found in the concept, in the theories or conceptual framework, related studies, that's empirical studies. So you mention the shortcomings that are clearly coming out, meaning you are trying to show that to this extent, these theories are supporting my topic of study, but they are falling short of this and that. So this is what we expect that you have to show when you are working on related literature review. Related literature review. So sometimes we would want to see you do literature survey, which examines the global literature that relates to the objectives of the study. Then the final approach is usually the best. That is starting with the international citations, coming down to regional, that's Africa, East Africa, Horn of Africa, and then mention the country citations that we can get in that particular country. So this should not be merely cut and paste. Don't do that. Or just citation without intelligent discussion and integration in the argument of the study. Remember, the purpose of literature survey or review is to give the current study an academic context. Yes, an academic context. So when it comes to citation, it is very important that you do the correct thing. Then when I was talking about theoretical review, what I want you to remember about theoretical review is that this will be the review of literature on the theory or theories, which the student will have identified as being the guiding principle of the study. So, like you are looking at how the theories will be used in the study has to be highlighted. By definition, a theory is a set of concepts, and therefore some of the concepts in the conceptual framework may be identified from the theories. Yeah, so the student should relate theoretical review with preparation of the theoretical framework that will guide the proposed study and the final outcome. So theoretical framework, it gives guidance. It makes sure that you don't digress, you don't go off track. Yeah, and also it can inform when you are also developing conceptual framework. Conceptual framework. And also I have talked about related review, so, or studies. So this should be done specific objective by specific objective. So when you are developing your literature, make sure you are also guided by the objectives. So the way you develop it, it should be done specific objective by specific objective. So each objective is given a theme that should reflect both variables of the study and a review of appropriate literature. So the researcher will decide on subheadings in accordance with every specific research objective. So if you have 4 research objectives, then you find you have to, when you are doing the literature about that, you make sure you have taken all into consideration. Then, at the end of this particular chapter, you have to do what we call summary of the literature review. Summary of the literature review, meaning you are concluding this chapter. So what are you going to do? The student or the researcher should highlight the main argument and key points from the literature in relation to the argument of the proposed study. Because you'll find the proposed study is having the thesis statement. And therefore, conclusion here should be restating the thesis statement. And also, the gap that have been identified, as I've said before, in the literature have to be highlighted. So the student should then use the identified gaps to justify the need for her or his proposal or proposed study. So because you see, when you are going to do your research, you have to convince your supervisor, you have to convince other stakeholders that your research topic or study is worth. And how do you do that? You do it by reading widely. And therefore, out of reading, you discover that there are so many gaps that are there because of the way theories that were formulated or developed long ago have been explaining or trying to solve the problems and what have you. And therefore, it calls upon now for you to go and do field study, empirical study, so that you can establish more or collect more data that will come to fill the knowledge gap. That is the importance of literature review, because it is obnoxious for you to start just doing anything without consulting different books, different written materials, because it is from all this you read that you will be able to establish where the gap is. After all, instead you might find otherwise you might find yourself repeating what others have done, and therefore you are not adding anything to the body of knowledge, or you are not even filling the gap, but what you are doing, you are only duplicating what has already been done. And therefore, literature review is very important because it informs you. In fact, it's a secondary source of data. So it is very important because that's the only way you can justify what you are doing. Otherwise, your supervisor, your dean would say, no, this is not necessary. And you might find yourself frustrated. You might find yourself not happy because you feel somebody is not really wanting you to proceed and go forward. But it is very important to take precaution to make sure you consult as many books as you can, but not any book, but books or literature that is related to your topic of study. When you do that, you'll be properly equipped, and even the language you use, the terminology, will be related to the content of the area of your study. Otherwise, you might find you are using a language that is not even acceptable to that particular area of study. So it is very important to read widely, and that will really help you a lot. So up to that far, I come to the end of this lesson 3, which is about related literature review. And I'm saying related literature review. I'm not just saying literature review, but related literature review. So I want to say thank you very much, and I'm hoping and believing that we are going to meet in the next lesson, lesson 4, where we shall be looking at chapter 3. And remember, from chapter 1 up to where we are, and up to chapter 3, as we shall see, you'll find like 90% of what you write is in future tense, because you are trying to tell your supervisor, you are trying to tell your dean that this is what you are going to do. And for this case, it has to be a research proposal, or maybe at the concept level, when you are developing a concept before you can be allowed to proceed and do a research proposal. So I want to say thank you very much, and see you in the next lesson. And I hope this lesson has been helpful to you. It has contributed something. It has catapulted you to a higher level in as far as understanding related literature review is concerned. Because here I'm not just talking about a thesis, I'm talking about publishable thesis. So when you obey and follow or abide by all the rules of the game, then you are going to come up with a very good product that is sellable, a product that can be consumed internationally. Therefore, you will not fear to present it for publication, because you are confident with what you have done. Otherwise, thank you very much, and see you then.